I'll tell you right now, robots do not sew. And you want to know how I know robots do not sew? Fast fashion giants like Zara would love nothing more than to be able to build hundreds of these robots and lock them in a dark room with no light, no AC, no heat, no food, no water, no accommodations, no breaks, and have them sewing these crappy clothes round the clock 24/7, 365. And then nominate themselves for some Nobel Peace Prize for no longer using slave labor. Hey, party people. Welcome to episode 7012 of my podcast. Today, we are going to discuss artificial intelligence's impact on the fashion industry and more specifically on fashion design. This one is going to be a bit of a Q&A and a story time and a rant kind of all rolled into one long lecture. So buckle your seats and let's go. AI is everywhere. AI is affecting, all different kinds of corners of the world and industries, but I can only, focus on fashion design because otherwise we'll be here for 3 days. AI is doing all kinds of things within the fashion industry with digital marketing, improving sales and customer experiences, all kinds of support functions, store operations. But we're here to talk about AI's impact on design and development. Okay, so first of all, what is AI? AI is artificial intelligence, but I think the better term is machine learning. It's AI, aka machine learning, because that's really what it is. And the easiest way I can describe it to you is to compare AI to a search engine and show you the difference, right? Right now, the big buzz of AI is centered around ChatGPT. Okay, so let's say you want to Google something, you want to search for something, you put in Henry VIII's wives, and then Google will bring you like a huge pages after pages of links on research papers on Henry VIII and research papers on each and individual wife, museum exhibits that feature art featuring them and people related to their stories, and blog posts from amateur historians, all kinds of stuff, costume exhibits featuring, costumes from that time era, everything, okay? Now, if you input that prompt into ChatGPT, let's say, who are all the wives of Henry VIII and how did they all die? And beep, beep, boop, here is an essay culled from all the links that Google has shown you, okay? So the AI is scraping all the information from all those links and research papers and everything on the internet, and then compiled an essay for you. Okay, and are all the essays good? No. Some are terrible, but they are increasingly getting better. Okay. So switching over to fashion, something a lot of fashion people do is to go on Pinterest and look up different trench coats. For example, okay, you want to design a trench coat, you want something that reminds you of armor, is inspired by armor, but you still definitely want it to look like a trench coat, and you wanted something colorful, something shiny, and you start compiling reference pics, and you start kind of sketching, maybe start collaging a few things in Photoshop, and to bring all these elements together. Now, you can input a prompt into something like Midjourney. I want a trench coat that reminds me of the movie Cars, and you'll probably get a series of AI renderings. These AI renderings are basically compilations of Google images, trench coats, armor, bright, colorful, shiny, and just mash them in together. And instead of showing you all the individual pictures that you look for, it does these mashups for you and creates renderings of these mashups for you instead of you sketching out the mashups that you thought of in your mind. Okay? So while I was doing research on this topic, I saw this video that made this analogy. Like when you're in grade school, you're a little kid, you had to learn long division. And it sucked, but your teacher said you had to learn it, so you learned it. Okay, you spent all day learning it, you spent all semester learning it, whatever. And it's hard and it's annoying, but you did it anyway. And then a couple of years later, your math teacher busts out a bunch of calculators and says, hey, use these. And you're like, excuse me, Why did we learn the hard way to do that? And it can feel like that to some people where they're like, well, I went to fashion school. I learned how to sketch. I wasn't good at it, but I did it anyway. And now there are all these computer programs who are just making these sketches for me. Like, why did I go to fashion school? Is my job in danger? Let's breathe. Let's breathe. Okay. So while I do agree with the long division and the calculator and all of that analogy that that person made, I'm going to expand on that a lot further. Okay. Because while it's true that people who learn how to sketch the hard way, whatever, and then now they're using ChatGPT, now they're using Midjourney, Muse, I think is another one, all these other tools, it can seem like it's a cheat. Just like now we're cheating with a calculator. However, as I went over thoroughly in my Is Fashion Design Easy episode, okay, initial ideation of a garment is only one tiny step in an industry where the final result is supposed to be a tangible garment made out of fabric or some other malleable material, okay? And ideas are a dime a dozen, but can you make your ideas a reality? Okay, it's fashion design, not fashion art. The reason why teachers introduce calculators to you at a certain point, at a very specific point, is at that point, you have moved on to more advanced math. Okay, you're learning things like, here's a triangle, and this leg is 10 inches, and this leg is 13 inches. What is the length of the third leg? So you have to learn things like the Pythagorean theorem. You have to learn how to use these formulas and these theorems accurately. You have to pick the right theorem. You have to pick the right process. You have to do them in the correct order. And if you need a calculator to do some of the basic arithmetic to get you there, so be it. But the calculator in this instance is a tool. The calculator cannot tell you, like, step 1 is this, step 2 is that. You have to learn all those steps. And it's the same thing with fashion design. Okay, you can get some really cool renderings to help you with the ideation process, but once you have that idea and you're looking at all these renderings, you have to be like, oh, is this something we can actually make? Because just because something can be sketched, something can be rendered, it doesn't mean it can be made. Number 2, if it can be made, how can we make it? Number 3, what materials do we need to make it, and how can I source these materials? And since you're most likely working for a brand, you have to figure out if this fits your customer, if you can produce it to your price point, a million other things that you have to do. AI, these prompts, these cool things that they're doing, this is just a tool that gives us a few shortcuts in the beginning stages of the whole design and development process. But it is not a replacement for a whole human designer. Not a good one anyway. In the description box below, I'm going to drop a link to this really cool article that describes G-Star Raw's first AI design product. And they talk about, how they use it as a tool within their design process. And it includes a short video. It's 45 seconds long, so I encourage you to watch it. It includes a 45-second video on their process into building this product, which ironically, spoiler alert, includes a lot of human hands, cutting, ironing, and sewing the denim, which really illustrates my point beautifully. Okay? Another thing that I say a lot, and this is really important to this conversation today, is anyone can design one cool dress. Okay? But designers, great designers, they have vision, they have a story for their work. They can create cohesive, creative, entire collections of clothes and accessories season after season after season that pushes the boundaries of creativity while not alienating their current fan base, balancing art and commerce, balancing tradition in the future. Okay? AI cannot do that. AI doesn't have vision. AI can't manage an atelier. AI can't inspire a team to create a beautiful collection. Okay? AI can't watch a model move during a fitting and let you know that dress has magic or not. Okay. AI takes your prompts, searches the internet for bits and pieces of your search terms, mashes up, and produces cool looking renderings in hopes that that's what you meant. Okay? And everything I read about AI says this. You have to learn the art of writing these prompts. And that is true of all industries and subjects where you're writing prompts for AI, like AI, come up with this and come up with that. You have to write the right prompt. And therefore, the more you know about fashion terms, vocabulary, how to describe fabrics, textures, and colors, the better your prompts will be and the more precise your renderings are going to be to what you imagined in your mind. So, can you create a business making whatever AI tells you to make? Yes. Will you make a lot of money? Maybe. There's a lot of variables in there. Does that make you a designer? No. But this is nothing new. Okay, story time. Let me tell you about this friend I had in college. I adore her. And this was in our senior year, and she had been dating this NFL player. And we didn't know who it was because, when you date famous people, you sign NDAs. And we didn't really care. It's like, oh, is he nice? Okay. So she was dating this NFL, that's American football, player. And he was a little bit obsessed with her, as well he should have been. And one day she comes up to me and she says, Zoe, this guy, he wants to take me to Hawaii for spring break. Should I go? And here's the thing. When you are spring break, your senior year of fashion school is not a break. Spring break is just a break from your classes so that you can catch up on your senior collection and just work round the clock uninterrupted on your senior collection. Because, spring breaks are in March, the shows are in May, like we're down towards deadline. And so most seniors in fashion school are not going off to vacations, okay? I promise you this is important, okay? So she's like, Hawaii, and we're all on the fence. Like, of course you should go to Hawaii. That sounds amazing. And with a freaking professional athlete, he will spoil like crazy. That's amazing. But also, how are you on top of your stuff? Like, are you ready? Like, if you don't have a chance to work on anything during spring break, are you going to be done in time for the show? Like, we were just really like going back and forth on this. Cut to, we've graduated, we've moved on, and I run into her at a get together at somebody else's house. And I'm like, hey girl, how's it going? I heard you're working at such and such place. How is it? And she says, oh yeah, I quit that job. And I'm like, oh, what happened? And she told me that going into that job, her job title was indeed design assistant, which is those plum jobs you want right after fashion school, right? You want design assistant jobs. And she was excited to work there, but then she very quickly learned that her job was mainly centered around going shopping with her boss, taking it to the pattern makers, having them knock them off, and then it was her job as the assistant designer to go back to the stores and return the clothes. And it just got, and she has a really distinct look. Or she did back then. I don't know what she looks like now, but she had a really distinct look. And so she was probably more recognizable than most. And she's like, they started recognizing me at the stores. And I just couldn't handle it, Zoe. Like, it was just too embarrassing to keep going back to these boutiques to return the stores. This was 20 some odd years ago. So on the anonymity of returning clothes after shopping online was not a possibility. And she just was like, and I was feeling secondhand embarrassment for her as she was like telling the story. And she's like, listen, I worked hard in fashion school. I got good grades and my senior collection looked great. And I didn't give up spring break with a freaking football star so that I could spend my time calling myself an assistant designer while returning clothes to Chloe and Prada. And I was like, good for you. No job is worth your self-respect. And she's like, and that's why I work somewhere else now. And And I was really, but yeah, so people have been copying forever, okay? The reason why I think that still American designers don't get as much respect as French designers, it's been that way for a long time, because for a long time, what Americans were doing was, copying French fashions. A lot of that changed during World War II because the communication connection was cut off during the war. And so American designers were kind of left to their own devices and had to innovate on their own. And I'll be covering that more in my future fashion history video on the 1940s. But yeah, it's kind of always been that way. People have always been copying other things. And, when Zara was the first company to, literally knock off things that were on the runway. So things have just gotten faster now. Copying has just become perpetually faster than it used to be, but it's an old process. And for those of you wondering why I'm talking about this, that is what AI is. AI is just scraping the internet, and that's the term everyone uses, scraping the internet, scraping data off the internet. Just scraping data off the internet is like, where do you think AI is getting all this knowledge? AI is not original. AI has no bias. AI has no personality. AI has no leanings. AI is just not coming up with things off the top of their head. They are just pulling images that they think will match whatever you put in the prompt. It's all copying, but just done on a different level now. AI is just out there remixing everything for you. And you may be thinking, well, Zoe, there isn't anything new anymore anyway. Everything is a remix of old stuff. And, that is true for 99% of what is out there for sure, which brings us back to the same old boring stuff I say on like almost every video. The future of fashion is textile technology. The future is in sustainability and creating a story that conveys your brand values so that people can connect to you. Speaking of sustainability, can AI make fashion more sustainable? One big argument for how people are using AI's ability to scrape the internet for data is to keep track of everything everyone is saying, paying attention to hit trends while they're hot. Designers can produce only what people want and when they want them, leading to less product waste, less landfill waste, okay? This is one of the dumbest greenwashing things I've ever heard. Do you think it's sustainable to track every micro trend that the internet is talking about, quickly manufacture to every trend, constantly push out product in the hope that they catch the trend before it dies? And honestly, that's not fashion design, that's manufacturing. That's how fast fashion works, okay? That's copying, not creating. Now, definitely there are processes outside of fashion design to be, that will help other sectors of the fashion industry and fashion business for more sustainable processes. But again, we're focusing on fashion design today, okay? One thing AI can do is to create realistic renderings so that you're not wasting resources on samples that go nowhere. This is another thing that people have been enjoying about 3D software like Clo, Browseware, Marvelous Designer, is the ability to render out ideas and then be like, oh, yeah, no, we didn't like that as much as we thought we would. And AI can definitely be a tool in this whole process, which I think is very cool. Now, if you want to use the data AI collects, not to chase every trend like a dog chasing its tail, but say, like companies like Fit to Everybody or Fit for Everybody and Body Fit, their data is used to help manufacturers cut garments that actually fit people. Okay, they collect body data, and that in turn leads to better fitting product, better product overall. And you're making product people are less likely to trash, less likely to return. And for those of you who did not know, when you return a garment, the chances that that garment will be resold to someone else are very low. Most companies trash returns because they don't trust it to be sold to someplace else. A lot of people, they wear it a little too stinky and then return it. So, there's that whole thing. But overall, I think making better product it's not the only component, but a major component in sustainability. So anything that leads to better products, I'm all for it. What's the future of AI? Okay, people think that AI helps them come up with ideas that they never would have considered before. That's the exciting part. That's why everyone's so buzzing about it, because these renderings look really, really cool. Okay. Number two, people think that in the future, with AI, everyone will be able to design the clothes they want and get them made. People have been doing that already. People do it all the time. Number three, people think AI will help people co-create custom looks with designers. But people already do that. People have been doing that for centuries. Okay? It used to be rich people would just tell their tailors what they wanted them to make. And historically, Rose Breton is considered the Western world's first fashion designer because she and Marie Antoinette co-created Marie Antoinette's gowns together instead of just Marie Antoinette being like, I want this with this and this and that. Okay. So again, AI can be a brilliant, helpful tool in the right hands, writing the correct prompts. But again, it's a tool that will help fashion do pretty much the same things it's always done. For an industry that's always looking for what's new, what's next, you know, we're kind of slow to change. Every few years, like, fashion journalists start buzzing about what we can do to replace runways. They're always like, are runways sustainable? Do we need fashion shows anymore? Like, the headlines are always the same every few years. But listen, we have still been doing runway shows for 160 years since Charles Frederick Worth, okay? So, yeah, we are slow to evolve in terms of processes, even with technological advances at every turn. Zoe, it sounds like you are not all that impressed with AI or all that worried about it. So listen, yeah, because I understand the design and development process. I know AI is not taking over all our jobs yet, and it's going to be a long time before it can. If you want to make sure that AI can't take over your job, you need to invest in the aspects that AI cannot touch, which means you need to have a creative vision. You need to have the ideas for the initial prompts to begin with, okay? You need to have, like, initial knowledge of, fashion design, of processes, of the entire development process, and how to blend that creativity and that knowledge to go further past the limitations of AI. Okay? But again, unintelligent, boring designers have always been replaceable. So again, that is not new. And that's it for today. Drop me all your questions in the comment section below. Share, subscribe, all the ways you bring me love. Let me know in the comments if there is a topic you want me to discuss in a future episode, and I will see you in the next video.